4500 down for Foxtrot. Yes, sir, we have Adams on site.
Sky, Gunner for Foxtrot, enter left base, runway 18, contact the tower, 118.7, good day.
Alright, enter left base, runway 18, tower 187. Have a good day, Niner for Foxtrot. Adams Tower, good morning. Skog 519 for Foxtrot on a 12-mile left base, runway 18.
194 Foxtrot, Adams Tower, runway 18, clear to land.
Alright, clear to land, runway 18, Niner for Foxtrot.
Little Rock approach AC 4124 is 15 for 10, Sierra.
Oh, 15
AC 4124, Little Rock approach, expect runway 4 left, descend at ballast discussion, maintain 6,000.
Hello YouTube, and welcome back to another episode of Non-Rev Stories, flight stories from a non-rev. On this episode of Non-Rev Stories, we head to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania to get back home from our trip out to Phoenix. Before we get into this video, let's talk about social media. Green Brothers Flying is on every social media platform. We are on Instagram at GreenBrothers_Flying, on Facebook as Green Brothers Flying, on Twitter as Flying Green, and on Discord. Green Brothers Flying is still selling t-shirts. They are $20. All links will be in the description below. Before we get into this video, let's start with some basic info on why I had to fly to Philadelphia to get home to Little Rock. This trip was back on June 15th, 2020 after I went out to Phoenix to surprise a friend. This flight only happened because flights out to Phoenix back home to Little Rock were full with the cap that most airlines had back then. Since I had an extra day to burn and my friend did as well, we decided that we would fly across the country for fun and because it was the only way I could get home. You might be asking, Ryan, how did you get out there with the cap? Well, I flew Southwest out there with no problems with the middle seats open. Anyways, let's get into this trip from Philadelphia. Let's get into the trip from Phoenix to Philadelphia. It is June 15th, 2020, and I have spent my whole day in Phoenix hanging out with some friends. Since this is during the coronavirus pandemic, flights were limited and so was capacity. Since all the other flights to my home city were full and I still had a full extra off day to burn, I decided that the best way to get home without spending a night in a hotel would be to fly across the country in the middle of the night to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So after a long day of hanging out, my buddy and I looked at open flights and we found that Philadelphia had the best options. So we booked that and headed to the Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport. We got to the airport in plenty of time and headed through security. Since this was a late night flight, the airport was quiet and we breezed through security. After that, we made our way down to the gate and saw our plane for this 4-hour red-eye. Tonight's plane was November 124 Alpha Alpha and Airbus A321. Our flight number was American 782. Since this was a late night flight and also empty, we got seats in first class. On this flight, I was in seat 3D and my buddy was in seat 3F. Since this was a longer flight, we got offered a bag full of water and some pretzels. At 11:38 local time, we pushed from the gate and taxied over to runway 25 right for departure. Shortly, we were in the air and on the way to Philly. Upon departing 25 right, we saw a small wildfire that was going on but did not pose any harm to anything at that moment. We reached our cruise altitude of 39,000 feet, or flight level 390, shortly thereafter and settled in for the long 4-hour and 20-minute flight across the continental United States. About an hour into the flight, I got comfy and passed out. I had been up since 5 a.m. Central Time, and it felt like it was 1 a.m. to me, even though it was just past midnight when we took off. Not much happened throughout the flight, as it was a normal flight. We did hit some pockets of chalk, but nothing that's not normal. About 20 minutes from landing, we started our descent into the greater Philadelphia area, and shortly thereafter, we landed on runway 9 right.
seatbelt fastened until the seatbelt sign is turned off. And keep the aisles clear of all carry-on items. Take a moment to check your seat back pocket for any personal items, like tablets and cell phones. When you open the overhead compartment, be careful, as items may have moved in flight. And thank you for choosing American Airlines.
After a short taxi, we pulled into the gate on time at 7:05 in the morning on the 16th. Since we were in the front, we were some of the first people off. We didn't do much in the airport as we only had an hour connection to Dallas, so we just kind of wandered around the airport and then went back to the gate for our flight to Dallas. This trip goes on to Dallas and then on to Little Rock for me, but both of those flights were uneventful and thought this one leg was more interesting than the other two. If you want me to do story time on the last two legs of this trip, let me know by liking this video, leaving a comment, and subscribing to the channel. Until the next one, with skies in a tailwind.